Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Sally Gunning, Vice President of the Brewster Historical Society and the Fundraising Chair, and we're talking about an exciting new project and a very large project for the Society. Sally, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Now, for many years, the Brewster Historical Society has rented a building to house its collection. Isn't that right?
Yes, 50 years in existence, and this is the first time we'll have a home of our own.
So this is big news that the Society has a new home. How did this all come about?
Well, actually, our president, Steve Jones, was driving down Lower Road one day, and he saw a for sale sign in front of the Captain Elijah Cobb House. And the next board meeting had an agenda item on it. What about the Elijah Cobb House as our new museum? We had previously set up a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, and top of the list was to try to find a permanent home for the Society. But we could not resist Captain Cobb's beautiful house.
And, of course, sort of taking a little step back, Brewster is the sea captain's town, so it's very appropriate that a sea captain's home might be the place open for tours for the Society.
It's absolutely a perfect match, and we have quite a collection of sea captains' navigational tools, their portraits, their wives' portraits, ships' portraits. We have a whole China trade exhibit. It couldn't be a better match. It's just delightful.
And as you said, this is the Elijah Cobb House. And as I understand it, Elijah Cobb led quite an interesting life.
He got around. He landed in France at the time of the French Revolution. He happened to have rice and flour on board, so they snagged that to feed the starving populace. He ended up finagling a meeting with Robespierre in order to get out of there with his reimbursement and his ship. He stuck around long enough to see Robespierre and over 900 other people guillotined. He did a little rum running off the coast of Ireland. He traded gold and ivory in Africa. At one point, he was a prisoner of war in Canada during the War of 1812.
So he led quite a life, and he was from Brewster, is that right?
Yes, he was.
He grew up in Brewster along with many other people who went into the sea captain's trade. Do you attribute that to anything in particular?
I know that they were all friends, and chicken and egg I'm not quite sure of, but right down the road were two sea captains that he was friends with. Another road over was another one that he persuaded off to Africa with him. They were all connected, and if you did grow up in Brewster, you would have seen the sea captains coming into town and throwing some change around, and I think it probably looked like a pretty good way to make a living.
And at some point, the town decided to bill itself as the sea captain's town. Of course, a lot of towns in this region have this connection to the sea, but for Brewster, there really are quite a lot of these magnificent sea captains' homes.
There are a lot of them, and in the year 1850 alone, there were 50 clipper ship captains living in Brewster. This is quite a feat. They weren't ordinary men who could captain a clipper ship, so we're kind of proud of that.
Now, meantime, you're the vice president of the Brewster Historical Society, but you're a historian and a published author yourself, so why don't we get a little background on you, too?
Well, I do. I write historical fiction, and that's what first brought me to the Historical Society. I was trying to find out a little bit more about 18th century Cape Cod, and they were so helpful, and they even found the cover for me for my first book. And we stayed acquainted as I wrote 3 more books set in part or entirely on the Cape, and I ventured off to Philadelphia on the 4th one. But over the years, we really had quite a connection going, and finally the archivist said to me, "Why don't you join the board?" And I said, "Oh, no." And then she asked me a couple of months later and a couple of months after that, and finally I did. And it's been a fascinating run. We've had a lot of fun.
Now, many towns on the Cape have historical societies, but they each have their own niche and their own special items that they've collected over the years. Tell us a little bit about the Brewster Historical Society.
I do think one of our main focuses is the sea captains, as I just mentioned. One of the treasures of our collection, Captain Cobb's great-granddaughter, Cara Dugan, took or collected over 400 glass plate negatives from the turn of the century taken in Brewster and around the Cape. And these are the most beautiful images you will ever find. They're just gorgeous. We're so proud of this collection. Right now we have an exhibit on loan at the Brewster Ladies Library called The Faces of Brewster, and it's taken from images from this collection.
Before you had the Elijah Cobb House, the family had this connection to the society.
Yes, absolutely. And even more exciting for us is she kept a diary, and we have many, many records of her life in the Captain Cobb House. We know just what she looked out her window at when she was sitting in her room. She has wonderful descriptions of the sunshine filling the parlor, and we can sit in that very parlor and just imagine it back in her day.
So of all the captain's homes in Brewster, this one actually already has sort of a connection to the society.
It absolutely does. We couldn't have found a better home.
And let's talk a little bit about this home, because some people might know to look at a captain's house, sort of approximately what that might look like. But what is special about this home? Sort of describe the home for us and the year it was built and what's special about it.
The house was built in 1799. It's pretty much considered the best example of late Georgian architecture on the Cape. It's absolutely perfectly symmetrical, top to bottom. It has a gorgeous widow's walk on the top. Everything is balanced. When you step inside the house, you're immediately taken by the light and air, the very high ceilings, beautifully spaced windows, lots of windows. Every room has a fireplace. The original molding is still intact. The dental molding up above, the reading down below, it's all just exactly how it was. And we are so happy to find this house that has not been altered beyond recognition. That's hard these days. People love an old house, but they also want to be able to live comfortably. And they very often change quite a bit.
Are there certain qualities that make something a captain's home? In other words, when someone says, oh, there's a sea captain's home, is there a time period? Are there certain architectural details that make a sea captain's home?
Interestingly, the 18th century sea captains' houses would be indistinguishable from any other house in Brewster. They were the typical Cape Cod house with the central chimney, the two windows on each side of the door, the central door. In the 19th century, there became a fashion, I suppose I'm going to say, of ostentation, a little bit more emphasis on, look what I built. And the houses grew bigger. The Georgians, very symmetrical, square, full two-story style, kind of segued into the federal architecture, which is pretty much the same basic construction, but less, I'm going to use the word frilly, even though I wouldn't say there's much too frilly about the Cobb House. But he does have dental molding on the outside and coins and things that make it a little fancier than the things that you would see later in the federal period.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Sally Gunning, Vice President of the Brewster Historical Society and the head of their fundraising. And we are talking about the project to convert the Elijah Cobb House, which is a historic captain's house in Brewster, into the Society's museum and headquarters. Now, this must be a big job. What is entailed in converting this house into the Society's headquarters?
We have a couple of rooms that had already been modernized. The keeping room had been turned into more of a sunroom with floor-to-ceiling windows that weren't in keeping with the period. The original boarding room had been turned into a bath and a laundry room and a kitchen, a modern kitchen. When you walked in the door of the Cobb House, you looked at a galley kitchen. So we did not want you to walk into the Cobb House and look at a galley kitchen. If you looked the other way, you would see a 1799 beehive oven, perfectly intact, the original masonry with the fireplace, all the original molding and mantle. So our goal is to preserve that, and then reconfigure the keeping room so that it's more the way it would have looked in Captain Cobb's day. We are going to use that room because it will be the entrance as our gift shop. We're putting in minimal sink and two-burner stove, small fridge, tucked away out of sight in the areas that were already modernized in the home. The two front rooms on the first floor and the two front rooms on the second floor will not be altered. They will be repaired in terms of just a little bit of reattachment of plaster to lath, things like that. Most of it is in good shape, and painting. the Bayside rooms, one of them has been sheetrocked. So that and one other room are going to be used for our offices, our storage, and our research area.
So as you said, it's quite lucky that there's a lot that remains from back in the time when it was built. You have that sort of history that's part of the house. Is that because did the same family have that house for many years? Because often that people don't change things as much when it stays in the same family.
I'm glad you asked that, Laura. Cara Dugan sold the property. Well, I take that back. She died, and she had deeded the property to someone outside the family in her will. That person had helped her hang on to the house for quite a few years. So in 1941, for the first time, the property changed hands. This is starting from 1799. That's unusual. And I think you're absolutely right that I think that's a lot of the reason that things hadn't changed too much. I will say, back in the 19th century, someone had put quite a big L off the back, and the woman who renovated the house in the early 90s removed it. It was not in good shape, and she took it back to Captain Cobb's original configuration.
Now, has this purchase already happened, or are you in the process still of purchasing the home?
We purchased the home February 17th of this year, and I've got that date engraved in my memory. It was a big day.
So that's a big deal for a local historical society. Where did the funding come from? Did you have to fundraise for that?
Oh, did we ever. I'm also the grant writer, so I can answer all these questions pretty thoroughly. We received 2 grants from the Community Preservation Committee, one for the acquisition and one to help towards the restoration. We received a $150,000 matching grant from Massachusetts Cultural Council. We're almost there meeting that match. We need a little bit more help, but we're almost there to meet that match, and we're so proud of ourselves to have done that. All of this has taken place in only really a little over a year. We received support from the Kelly Foundation, the Eddy Foundation, the Jennison Foundation, and over 800 individuals and businesses have contributed to this project. It's been a wonderful community effort.
And amazing how quickly it's come together, as you said, in just a year to have to be able to make that kind of a purchase. And my hat's off to you as the grant writer for doing that. I know that must have been a lot of work.
Well, I will say I didn't get very much done on my manuscript over the past year. It was a bit of a scramble to get it off to make the deadline, but I did it.
You named a lot of things that you want to do in terms of the restoration in order to convert it into a museum. And so how long will that all take, and how much more money do you need to get that all done?
We need about $50,000 more to complete the project. The match isn't going to take us all the way there, so we need another $50,000 to complete the project. We anticipate we will be able to open next summer. That from day one has been our target date. We did have some delays. The owner died in the middle of the sale negotiations, so that put us back. We went into probate and so forth and so on. The process of going through the town permitting ended up taking a lot longer than we had anticipated because of various, snowstorms, you name it, everything. It just happened. That's the way things are. But we did set out a timeline that had enough gaps in it. It had elastic. We kept it elastic so that we could catch up if we needed to, and we think we'll be able to, and to be able to open next summer. We are realistic. Who knows what we're going to find around the corner, but the way it's looking right now, we're going to be on target.
Well, fixing up a historic home, you often run into things you don't expect, but it sounds like you're well into the process and that kind of thing hasn't happened. Not too many surprises?
Not too many surprises. We still have more places where they could leap out, but so far so good.
Now, when it opens next summer, will you have furniture from the period there in the house for people to see?
Yes, we do. We're hoping to create an atmosphere of a captain's home. At the same time, we do want to display Brewster's treasures. That's what we're about. And it will have the air of a museum, but we do hope that you will walk in and feel as if, I can sit down in this room with Captain Cobb.
And does the property have gardens? My understanding is it actually used to reach all the way to the sea. Is that right?
It reached all the way to the sea. It was a working farm. In Carol Dugan's day, in the great-granddaughter's day, it had quite extensive gardens, and she talks a lot about what was in them. So that's kind of nice to know what she was looking out at. But back in Elijah Cobb's day, we're talking a working farm.
And do you have plans for the land? Are you going to get involved with gardening, or perhaps there's a local gardening club that wants to work on it?
We received a wonderful donation, a targeted donation, specifically to hire a landscape architect to try to make sure that the house is situated in the proper historic setting. And that's where we're going to start. We're looking into that right now.
Now, in the last minute or so that we have left, how can people get involved? How can they donate to this project?
Thank you for asking. The easiest thing to do is go to our website. Our website is brewsterhistoricalsociety.org. And in there, it will tell you how to donate either by credit card or by sending a check to the Brewster Historical Society. If people want to jot down the mailing address, it's the Brewster Historical Society at P.O. Box 1146, Brewster, 02631.
It sounds like such a great project. I can't wait to go in the house next summer and see it. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I've been talking to Sally Gunning, Vice President of the Brewster Historical Society. And thank you so much, Sally, for being with me here today.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.